I swear to God, I didn't understand anything but my name, and he said Abu Hamideh. It's very interesting to hear the Dutch language, and I'm probably your only English speaker tonight?
Yes.
Does everybody in the room speak English?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's a good thing.
For yourself.
Just before I start, just want to remind everyone that we have some hunger strikers in Palestine right now, and it's important that we recognize them in an event like this. It wouldn't be a Palestinian event if we didn't recognize them. You have some hunger strikers going on right now for their 75th day. 75th day, no Israeli poison. They are not eating anything for 75 days. I want to also notate that we have a family member in the room. Does everybody here know Naji Al-Ali? Naji Al-Ali, the one who created Hamideh, the political cartoonist, who was assassinated by the Israeli Mossad. We have our oud player, Zaid Al-Tayyim, in the back. Please stand up. He's the direct cousin of Naji Al-Ali. Okay. It's important to recognize these individuals, these icons, these Palestinian icons. So to have a family member in the room, it really gave me, as soon as I came and I was introduced to this gentleman, it really gave me a good vibe. You know, because Naji Al-Ali is with us today, his family member is here. So that's an honor to all Palestinians. Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. It is quite an honor and joy to be here as a representative of Al-Auda. It's alright, that's the American passport. I'll pick it up for another point. So I'm representative of Al-Auda, the Palestine Right to Return Coalition, an organization fully dedicated to the Palestinian refugees' right to return to their ancestral homeland, Palestine. Thank you. I'm going to need it for...
We kept all these bad people outside. So.
I brought it to make a point. So I want to also special thanks to the energetic organizers for having me here today at the 64th Amsterdam Nakba Commemoration. I like the way that sounds, 64th Amsterdam Nakba Commemoration, because I know you have a very, very pro-Zionist lobby here. Will the Zionists in the room please stand up? Do we have them here? Don't be shy, just stand up. I'm Palestinian, I don't care if you're here. Okay. So nobody, good. All right. Thanks to Sadiqa Arab, Iman Mahi, Hanan Haram, Rashid Aznadam. Okay. My fellow Palestinian Doc Jazz in the back there. And everyone else involved, including my friend Dina, who's in the room, who got me here to this event. Thank you very much. Is anyone here in this room? We got a lot of Moroccans in this room, right? Moroccan solidarity? Who's Moroccan? Raise your hand. All right. Are any of you denied entry to Morocco? You can go freely to Morocco, right? Yes. Anytime you want?
Yes.
Nobody tells you you can't return.
Yes.
The Palestinians can't. We can't do that. Okay? This is why I have my American passport, but I can go to Palestine with this passport as a tourist. My homeland, where they massacred my people, where you can trace my family for generations. This passport can get me back there as a tourist. It depends what they feel like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. It depends what the Israeli passport control feels like letting me in as a tourist, not to live there. The Moroccan love of Palestine and enormous support is evident here at this gathering. There's a deep connection between the people of Morocco and the Palestinian people. And be sure that the Palestinian people are taking notice of this phenomenal solidarity. And I know that many of you do not consider this work as simply a solidarity measure, but consider it your cause and your duty. The Palestinians are grateful for this as well. We all know Palestine is part and parcel of the Arab world, therefore, in fact, an Arab cause, and that is clearly reflected on our national flag. Our Palestinian flag represents Arab nationalism. We take pride in that, and the very reason it was adopted by for our national symbol. Palestine was always Arab and will remain proudly Arab, no matter what others call it in their delusional minds. So these colors right here do not just necessarily represent Palestine. This is Arab nationalism right here. We adopted it as an Arab revolution. So getting into the Nakba, the reason why we're here. The Palestinian Nakba, or the catastrophe, was well orchestrated long before it occurred in 1948, which caused the dispossession and ethnic cleansing of many Palestinians from their beloved ancestral villages in order to make way for a so-called Jewish homeland. The story often fantasized by Zionists that Palestine was a land without a people. The fantasy does not explain the theft, the massacres, mass forced expulsion of the original inhabitants of the land, the Palestinians, who are unquestionably the indigenous people of the land. One well-known example that ignited the Nakba was the village of Deir Yassin, in which I am a direct descendant of. My father and grandparents were survivors of the Deir Yassin massacre that occurred on April 9, 1948. My father, Fakhri Qasim Hamideh, was a survivor of the massacre at Deir Yassin on April 9, 1948. Like most Palestinian refugees, his greatest wish, since he was forced into exile in 1948, was to one day be able to return to his village in Palestine. Unfortunately, 53 years later, on February 7, 2001, while driving himself to a regular doctor visit, he passed away at an Israeli checkpoint in Ramallah. My father was receiving kidney dialysis treatment on a regular basis at the Ramallah hospital while he was there. Due to the delay at the Israeli checkpoint that day, he could not get through in time. He went into cardiac arrest, passed away inside his vehicle, which had New York license plates, by the way, despite all efforts trying to get through the checkpoint. There were witnesses who explained this to the family, including Palestinian ambulance medics and hospital officials in Ramallah. We flew to Palestine the next day for burial procedures and met with hospital administration there. My dad was laid to rest in Ramallah, away from his village of Deir Yassin. His dream to return was now passed on to his children, the descendants of his beloved village, Deir Yassin. For centuries, the village of Deir Yassin, 3 miles west of Jerusalem, was a peaceful place in Palestine. The Arabic word Deir means monastery. In the early 18th century, around 1742, a nomadic Arab Bedouin and his family settled in this village. His name was Sheikh Muhammad al-Yassin. The village was named after Sheikh Muhammad al-Yassin and ever since known as Deir Yassin. In 1948, the Zionist perpetrators for the massacre at the village of Deir Yassin had begun. The terrorist Zionist Jewish Stern Gang put forward a proposal to massacre the residents of the village in order to show the Arabs what happens when the Irgun and Stern gangs unite in their operations. One of the aims of the attack was to break Arab morale and create panic throughout Palestine. Deir Yassin overlooks Jerusalem from its mountain point. Taking Deir Yassin was militarily strategic to Zionist plans to empty Palestine of its indigenous inhabitants. In the early morning of April 9, 1948, the peaceful village of Deir Yassin was attacked and its inhabitants massacred by the terrorist Zionist Irgun and Stern gangs led by Menachem Begin and Ben Zion Cohen. The Irgun and Stern gang butchered everyone in their way, men, women, and some were even pregnant, and children, to empty the entire village. The massacre was designed to terrify beyond the village of Deir Yassin so that they would run away, thus be driven out of their homes. This explains why the Zionist death squads did not bury the men, women, and children they killed. They left the dead bodies to be seen frightened and frightened other Palestinian Arabs. Those who were still alive were taken by the Zionist terror gangs through the streets of Jerusalem, while other Zionist Jews applauded and celebrated the dehumanization of Palestinian Arabs. After our people's humiliation through the streets of Jerusalem, they were taken back to Deir Yassin, lined up against the wall, and systematically sprayed with gunfire and murdered. 53 orphan children were literally dumped on the walls of the old city of Jerusalem, where they were found by Hind al-Husseini. She took them to her home, which is located behind the current Arab Colony Hotel, and they became the first class of Dar al-Tifl al-Arabi orphanage. A few weeks later, Israel declared itself a state and was recognized immediately as such by American President Harry Truman. With the exception of a few, the graves of the martyrs of Deir Yassin will never be known because they were bulldozed by the state of Israel, apparently to make way for new Jewish settlers. The terrorist criminals who perpetrated the Deir Yassin massacre were never punished or brought to justice. Instead, they were rewarded, and one former leader of the Irgun, Menachem Begin, became prime minister soon after. So you have a terrorist who became a prime minister. Later, the renowned war criminal Ariel Sharon, to carry out the slow genocide set in motion by the European U.S. Zionist project against Arab countries that continues until this day. Morine Klein of the Zionist Organization of America, a report entitled Deir Yassin, History of a Lie, that claims that there was no massacre at Deir Yassin. To deny the Deir Yassin massacre is like denying the Nazi Judeocide in Europe during World War II. The massacre at Deir Yassin is as true as the Nazi Holocaust in Europe. The village of Deir Yassin was only one of many massacres perpetrated by the Zionists and Israelis to terrorize the indigenous people of Palestine. Other Palestinian towns and villages where massacres occurred include Ain Karim, Qaqoon, Tantura, Yafa, Safad, Sufsaf, and 115 people massacred at the wall of Sufsaf Mosque, Haifa, Tirit Haifa, Jibzu, and many more. The Sufsaf residents, coincidentally, witnessed their second massacre at the infamous Sabra and Shatila, or the Shatila refugee camp, in 1982. These were the same people that witnessed the first massacre in 1948, 34 years later. The war criminal Ariel Sharon was directly responsible as well for that massacre. Contrary to the Zionist myth that the old will die and the young will forget, 64 years later, today, some of our elders may have died, but the young still remember. The descendants of Deir Yassin, the Palestinian refugees, and the people on the ground at home and elsewhere continue to struggle for the time when we can claim our absolute, sacred, individual, and collective right to return to our original homes and lands. UN Resolution 194, in which Israel violates many times, UN Resolution 194 affirmed the right of Palestinians to return to their homes and land. This resolution was further clarified by the UN General Assembly Resolution 3236, which reaffirmed in subsection 2 that the inalienable right of Palestinians to return to their homes and properties from which they have been displaced and uprooted calls for their return. The Palestinian right to return is specifically to their original homes and lands, and not simply to what may be designated as a Palestinian state in the future. Palestinians around the world, like us here today, are not just commemorating the 64th Nakba of the Palestinian people, but are also simultaneously celebrating 64 years of resistance and perseverance. Our mission is not just to commemorate and remember what happened to our people in the Palestinian catastrophe, but to work towards rightfully returning to Palestine. It is our right. We remember, but we still fight and endure towards our inalienable right to return. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Thank you.